Greetings, Yellow Blazers, Blue Blazers, I don't know, purists, Bill Bryson fans, Bill Bryson haters, and everyone in between. My name is Pox Holiday, and sitting to my left is...
Puss in Boots.
And today we're going to give you a little bit of an intro to our first ever, Pox and Puss, or Puss and Pox show, probably to be named later. But basically the idea behind this show is to entertain through hikers, entertain people that enjoy the trail, and of course section hikers, can't leave them out, dedicated people. But the main idea is just kind of entertain, and I know for me, I'm coming up on my 15th anniversary of my through hike in 1998, so I kind of want to get reacquainted. I've kind of fallen away from the through hiking world, and did exactly what every other former through hiker did. I kept eating like I was on the trail. And so I'd like to get back out there and get to know the trail that I had basically kind of abandoned over the last few years. About you, Puss?
Best group of people I have ever had the privilege of being part of, my trail family. I miss them terribly. I have a fever, and the only prescription, obviously, is some Springer Mountain. But, we got bills to pay and mouths to feed, so...
Babies to kiss.
The best thing I can do is exactly what I'm doing right now.
Just talk about it.
You bet. I think the rest of my friends are sick of hearing about it, so maybe these fine folks will enjoy some stories.
It's funny you say that because our guest today is a gentleman named Flow Easy, who hiked in 1998, the same year that I did, actually summited on the same day. But he definitely, his wife and my wife share a common boredom of hearing our stories after a while. Once you get two or three of us together in a room, it seems like both of our spouses have been like, okay, no trail stories tonight.
It's enough.
Kind of alienates us, but welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And we thought it was great to have you on just because of your knack for having trail magic happen to you, or at least from my perspective. Seemed like you were always... a day ahead, it would be sunny on you, rain on us, and
we got plenty of rain too.
Yeah,
you know it.
Yeah, well, but yeah. So yeah, in 1998, that was known as the year of the El Nino, and then the La Nina at the end there. That was always fun because then it was just dry everywhere. But so today we're going to be talking about trail magic and the good, the bad, and definitely the weird and long and drawn out, and for me, dehydrating. So we'll be right back with more Pox and Puss.
So I was really blessed with running into trail magic, like, on the constant. And a lot of the time I kind of thought, like, maybe it's because I'm a girl and I'm, like, not threatening. People see me and I don't have a crazy, scary beard and, like, that it's possible. Mm-hmm. But in general, I feel like I... much like Flow Easy, found trail magic a lot more often than the average. That said, I did have an experience with, like, the worst trail magic ever. And it was actually, like, one of the first trail magic experiences I had. And at that point, like, it was still so novel that you were, like, fucking jazzed when it happened. You were like, oh my god, it's trail magic, this is great. And I was walking into Franklin. I think I had maybe like 3 more miles into Franklin, and I am about to cross over a service road, and this Jeep Liberty like sees me, and like they drive by, and I'm kind of like, oh, it's a car, and then I hear it like turn around really fast and throw it into park, and these 2 women get out, and they're like, oh, we've been looking all day for trail hikers. And I'm like, trail hikers? Well, and at that point, I'm still like, why, yes, I am hiking the trail. It's a pleasure to meet you. Would you like my picture? And they get out, and they're like, we have been looking for hikers all day. We have trail magic for you. And I'm like, yeah, this is sweet. And they proceed to, like, lay out this spread, and it's like, and you're getting excited because, like, they pull out, like, a can of soda, and you're like, yeah, soda, and then they pull out a Snickers bar, and then they pull out, like, some ho-hos, and then they pull out this white bread, and I'm like, all right, white bread, and they're like, we're gonna make you a sandwich, and I'm like, a sandwich sounds awesome, thank you. And then they pull out, like, these huge Tupperware containers of homemade pimento cheese. And like,
Oh, man.
you know, I'm from the South, but I'm not enough from the South to like really count pimento cheese sandwiches among like my favorite sandwiches. I should also probably mention that maybe 20 minutes or less before this, I had emptied out my food bag at lunch. Like, I am hiking into town today. I'm going to resupply in Franklin. I don't want to carry anything extra. And so I was like almost painfully full already. And so these two women lay out the spread and I mean, like, they had said, we've been looking for hikers like all day, and so they were really excited to give. You could just tell that was like their whole day's plan was like trail magic. We're gonna go be trail magicians, and they lay this sandwich high and deep with pimento cheese. I mean, it's like 2 inches thick, like oozing out the sides, and they put it on this plate and they put it all in front of me, and then they both just like sit there with their head in their hands and their elbows on their knees and like staring at me like, all right, now we're just gonna watch you eat it. Like, that's where we're really gonna have a good time, is we just want to watch you enjoy this trail magic that we've provided you with. And I'm like, oh boy, I'm really full and I don't know how much of this I can eat. And like, just as I'm like doubting myself, they're like, don't worry, you're a hiker, you can eat anything. Like, we know you'll finish it all, and we've got more for you when you're done. And I'm like, oh no, this is going to be terrible. So I like literally like cram down half of a pimento cheese sandwich, and I'm like eating the light stuff, like trying to make it look like I've made a dent in this spread. And they're both just still like doe-eyed watching me, like, let us know when you need more. And I'm like, no, please don't make me eat anymore. And they were convinced that I was gonna set a new world record on like the amount of pimento cheese sandwiches that could be eaten in like 30 minutes or less. But finally, like, I ended up like, they turned around and I like was like shoving stuff in my backpack so that they would think that I had eaten it. And finally I was just like, well, I like looked up at the sky and I was like, looks like the sky might be, I should probably get out of here before the weather turns. Thank you so much. And like tried to just disappear into the woods. And like the last thing I heard them say was like, let's go find some more trail hikers. And I was like, oh my God, I feel like I should warn people. But so as nice as they were, and they were lovely ladies, but it was definitely the worst trail magic that I was forced to eat pimento cheese against my will. They would hear nothing else of it.
They were in a Jeep Liberty.
Yeah, they sure. I think it was bright blue too. It was perfect.
Nice. All right, we'll be right back. All right, Magic Boy.
Hey man, it didn't happen to me all that much. Yeah. It just maybe happened to me more than you. You know, it's always a just a matter of timing. You know, when things happen and you happen to be on a road when somebody drives by, or you happen to, you know, walk through a park when somebody, you know, opens the door to the outhouse and comes running into you and, you know, wants to buy you a beer for it. You know, there's no telling it. We were in a park up in Northern Virginia. Should I say the name of the park? I don't know.
Sure, that's fine.
Well, it's the Shenandoahs, you know. So, and it was nice.
That's a
place.
National park, isn't it?
As a matter of fact, it is.
I thought.
And so we stumble into this park. It was, you know, it would have been an early lunchtime, you know, about 11 o'clock, maybe 10:30. You know, it was we roll in, and suddenly there's this big open field, a couple of big shelters there, and we walk up, and there's a big group, and they're out there and they're cooking hot dogs and hamburgers and throwing the frisbee around. And we don't want to interrupt them. We go around to the side and we park ourselves. It's just getting ready to rain, and you know they kind of pulled things back in. They came around the corner to ask what we were up to, and we offered them a Fig Newton. They said no thanks, but hey, we're cooking hamburgers over here. Would you care for one of those? Well, I don't want to. We don't want to intrude, but you know, if you have extras, oh sure. And so next thing you know, we're palling it up with everybody over around the corner and having a good time, and you know we have a great lunch. It's a huge lunch actually, and everybody packs it up and they leave, and we decide we're gonna wait out this lunch for a little while. You know, we don't want to get going just right away, and you know, heck, if another group doesn't come into the shelter, not very long afterwards. And so we're kind of laying there in the sun. It's been raining, and now the sun's come out for a little while, and they invite us over to hamburgers and hot dogs. Yeah, I think this might be it's getting on toward the 4th of July weekend. There are a lot of people out. Mm-hmm. And so we think, well, it's lunchtime. It's 2:00. It's, second lunchtime.
Second lunch.
So we have another lunch.
11.
We have a great time. That's right. And followed by 12s, 1s, 2s, and 3s.
Amen, brother.
So we have lunch with these folks. Again, another group. We have a great time. Everybody's patting each other on the back, telling stories, tossing their kids back and forth.
Keep going.
Next thing you know, it's late in the afternoon. They figure they've got to pack it up. They've got a whole watermelon. They don't have anything to.
Whatever would they do with a whole watermelon?
What would they do with a watermelon?
God.
They have too many of them, too many watermelons, not enough people to eat these. They decide they'd really like to leave this watermelon with us. Well, we're happy to oblige. If we can help them out by taking their watermelon, we'll do that. Mm-hmm. So we take their watermelon, and we decide that it's not really a good time to hike. We're pretty full. We think we better sleep it off in the sun for a little while before we get going and find a campsite. Mm-hmm. We're not quite sure where the next campsite is, but we're sure we're going to be okay. Well, so we lay around for just a little while longer, and we're looking at that watermelon thinking, man, I am stuffed. Holy cow, I just can't eat a thing. And this family comes rolling in for dinner. And we sit there for a little while, and they look at us, and we look at them, and they look at us again, and we look over at them. And then we walk over and offer them our watermelon. Because we're so stuffed, we can't eat a single thing, and we don't need this watermelon, but we're happy to give it to this other family. Well, this family, they're really interested in what we're doing out there. What are y'all doing? It's almost dark. What are you doing here? Come on. Well, y'all should eat with us at least. We've got all this food. And you've got this watermelon now, so we've got dessert. Oh, it'll be great. You all should stay. We'll have a good time. It'll be wonderful. So, we stay for dinner again. Well, after dark, we found a little place in the bushes to stay. Got up the next morning just in time to cook breakfast across from a family who wanted to have a pancake breakfast at sunrise. Dude. We got 4 meals in one place. We eventually just had to leave because we could have stayed there forever. It was perhaps the most magical spot about, at least for us that year.
Oh my god!
So you got 11's lunch, dinner, and breakfast, all for laying in the sun and re-gifting food that had already been given to you. Is what you're telling me.
It was tough business.
Yeah, that's around here. Re-gifting is serious business.
Oh, waste not, want not.
Oh my god! You bastard!
You
said that was in the Shenandoahs?
It was. We camped in an official spot.
Legal.
Let's just say that.
Legal, registered, official.
Of course. There were only a few spots that were legal.
Dang.
We had a hard time making it to that first spot.
Yeah.
And then back to that same place for breakfast the next morning. But we did it.
On a random note, we entered the Shenandoahs at the same time, didn't we?
I think we. In fact, I think I carried a sandwich or a pair of socks up to you from your mama.
That was after the Shenandoah.
Oh,
was that? Oh, that was the end of the Shenandoah. You're right.
Yeah, that was
right.
Nice.
So we finished the Shenandoahs at least at the same time. Did we start?
We went by that zoo. There was like a zoo or something right along the trail.
In the Shenandoah?
No, north of it. Or it's not a zoo. It's like an animal refuge or
there
something like that.
There is a little.
And there's like you can occasionally see the tigers. I remember seeing that in Wingfoot's book.
Oh yeah, there was like a big fence. There was like a big chain link fence.
Yeah, and you stopped and looked,
Yeah.
and there was not jack shit there.
You always wanted to, but at that point you were so close to what's that next place?
You're pretty close to Harper's Ferry.
No, it's right before.
Well, you're at Rockfish Gap at that point.
No,
then
it's
you
that.
go to...
No, Front Royal. That's what I was talking about.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
That's right. Yeah, because my folks had dropped us off, and you caught right up behind us there that day.
It's pretty amazing that I caught y'all, actually, because I didn't have a habit of catching anybody.
Socks from your mama.
Yeah.
Didn't you? What was it? It was maybe a sandwich. Maybe it was a sandwich.
I can't remember what it was.
They flagged us out and said, "You look like you're hiking. Do you know Pox Holiday?" I said, "Well, yes, ma'am. As a matter of fact,
Bless my
I do."
lucky stars, a hiker. Do you know my son?
A trail
Pops?
hiker.
Bless my lucky stars, a trail hiker.
Didn't somebody give you cash?
somebody gave our friend Sightseer cash.
That's right. Sightseer.
How much cash?
I think it was on the
$20
order
or
of,
something?
I think it was on the order of 40 or 60 or 80. I mean, it was several $20 bills. They were at a bar, I think, and he started telling his story, and this guy looked at him, and he looked at his beer, and he looked back at Sightseer, and he said, "Man, that's the most amazing thing I've ever heard. Do you want to go home with me? I mean, certainly it's perfectly okay. You and your girlfriend there, your hiking partner, you can both go home with me, and I just have to stop and pick up a couple of new guns first." And they said, "Well, we've got people waiting for us." And then he said, "Okay, that's fine. Well, here's $40 or $60 or $80, however much it was." He said, well, what's this for? He's like, just help you out whenever you get through. I mean, I don't think I ever had anybody give me cash. That was pretty exciting.
When I wrote you that text the other day, I was like, that might have been Sightseer and Landscape.
I think it was Sightseer. But, I was with Sightseer and Landscape, and they got all the trail magic. I happened to be tagging along when they got most of the trail magic.
Yeah, it's unfortunate when you're an attractive male with a very attractive female. It's
Or
never a good combination on the trail.
No. It also kind of sucks being an unattractive male by yourself. It didn't really help anything there.
It doesn't match being two dudes with full beards standing on the side of the road with their thumbs out.
I did have a small, white, cute dog. Nobody wants to see a small, fluffy white dog out in the rain.
As a solo female, I can also say, if you happen to be one of those unattractive males, just tag up with one of the relatively attractive females, because we will get a ride no matter where we are.
Trail hot.
Trail hot. We'll call it trail hot.
Right.
I have never been more attractive than the 6 months that I spent studying abroad in Italy and my time on the AT. As an easy American co-ed, or one of the only non-married, non-lesbian females on the trail. Amen.
That deserves a sip of shandy. Fuck them. So we'll be right back. Oh, fuck them. Fuck them. I'm drinking. So I guess, yeah.
I'm just thinking of in a bar conversation, you just happen to be sitting there drinking. Nobody ever thought that I was of age the whole time I was on trail.
How old were you when you hiked?
I was 25.
Okay, that's what I was.
But
how old you were? 24.
No, I turned 22.
Oh,
and Barf turned 21.
Wow!
Dang!
At Dots.
Wow!
Wow!
Oh man, that was one of the best birthday parties I've ever been to, because we were there the night before. He couldn't come in because he wasn't 21, and drunkenly I was like, "If you could make a birthday cake for my buddy, it'd be awesome." I'm just drunk as hell at Dots, and they're like, "Okay, sure thing, ha 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 ha." And I don't recall anything of that. Actually, hanging out with Squirrel.
Okay.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember Squirrel.
And so we were at the place, and we'd all joked about, going back up the Dots the next day. And Barf didn't even want to go back up. He was like, I don't know. I just turned, I don't know. I'm like, dude, you've got to go. I mean, you're in Damascus. You're going to be able to look back on this, and that's a great story. You're 21 in Damascus at Dots. And I was like, all right. So we go up there, and sure enough, they had fucking baked him a cake.
Oh.
And we're like... The lady came up, she's like, I made that cake. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. And she's like, the one we talked about last night. And it was like, yes! The one we talked about last night.
Okay.
I totally remember that cake that we talked about last night.
Yes!
Blue cake? No. The Greek, what? Yeah, oh, yeah.
And there was definitely a Damascus local in there with her, I don't know, boyfriend, husband, baby daddy, I don't know.
Brother. I love you, Damascus. I don't really mean that.
She came in, and they were sitting there, and I remember that they had...
Y'all got to eat that last piece of cake?
The ladies had gone all out. They had made this cake for him. They had a helium balloon, and they taped it to the chair, so it was right there, so for his chair.
Was it a beer cake? He was turning 21, right?
I have no recollection. It was just like a round cake.
It was a cake.
It was really tiny.
Man, a cake is what I craved the most on a trip. Anything baked.
Really?
A cookie, a cake.
A cake?
Oh.
Really?
Oh, that was... I mean,
Coca-Cola.
I could get a Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola Classic was my number one trail.
I could get a Coke.
But a cake, I don't think I ever got that far.
You never craved a cake?
No.
You never crave cake?
No.
I hate cake.
Oh!
Who hates cake?
Nobody hates
I don't like
cake.
cake.
That's like,
I just don't like cake.
See,
like hating friends. What? How could you hate cake?
The show?
How about cookies? Do you like cookies?
Love cookies.
Well, there you go. It's a baked good. I'm talking baked goods. I have a deep love for baked goods. And Coca-Cola I could get once a week or so. You run through a town, maybe stand in the rain with little white fluffy dogs. Somebody stops, pick you up, takes you to town. Mm-hmm. Works out great that way.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, cake.
Cake.
Not
Can't always
bad.
get a cake. Cake's tough.
So the helium balloon's there.
Helium balloons are even harder.
Helium balloon's sitting there. It's taped up to the bar stool that Barf's sitting at. And this lady comes up, and he's just turned 21. She's definitely in her 30s. And he's kind of sitting there. And
Do you say that in a good way or a bad way? I can't really tell.
Or that's
like
what she wants you to think.
She's deep in her 30s.
She's up there in her 30s.
I'm 21 at the time,
deep.
so everybody is old, at that point. So I'm like, all right, whatever. So she's sitting there hanging out and like, oh, it's your birthday, huh? And just, sweet talking Barf and talking him up. And she reaches in.
Who wouldn't love sweet talk bar?
Who wouldn't love it? She reaches in and she like looks at the cake and she's like, it's your birthday? He's like, yeah. She's like, well, happy birthday. And she leans in and just plants this kiss, like mouth, cheek, like, and he's just like, oh. And as she does it, she takes her lit cigarette, and pops the fucking helium balloon.
What a bitch.
She's like, oh, bam.
What a bitch.
And it was just kind of like, okay. I think they left like 5 minutes later. But yeah, it was just like all one motion, like, yeah, bam. It's like, oh shit. And that's Dots. This wasn't even a segment, was it? We just were talking.
No. I was going to say the one, because I didn't go into bars often because I didn't look my age. And I just wanted to take a shower and do some laundry and, drink a beer. But it was usually more convenient to just buy beer at the grocery store. But I think there was, one time that I actually, sat at a bar. And I was there with a buddy of mine. And he recalled that the year earlier at the same bar, he had sat down and he was talking to this guy. And this guy started talking about how he had been in the Grayson Highlands, and he knew a lot about the trail, but he wasn't a hiker. He had spent a fair amount of time on trail, but had never really done any distance. It was he would drive to the closest place and camp for the night and then go home the next day. But that he had been up at in the Grayson Highlands on some holiday, and that there was a local college that was there to do
that was my dream for every time I
know, right? No, but there was some backpacking club from some local college that was out hiking, and there's this kid
they always have too much food,
right? Exactly. But there's some kid laying in the trail a flipping and a flopping, having a problem. And this guy that we randomly meet at the bar is like, yeah, man, I saw him laying there, and I realized I knew exactly what would happen. And he had eaten too many mushrooms on this class trip. So I says to the professor, Professor, I got a joint in my first aid kit for medicinal purposes. For medicinal purposes. Can I give it to him? And the professor says, no, you can't give it to him. There's rules against this. We can't just give college students marijuana. And he says, but you don't understand, man. He needs it. and we're just like, what is happening? So he's talking about he needs it. He's having problems. We got to give him this weed. He never even really finished that story. He just segued directly into, and then this other time, I was in my kayak, and I was paddling, and I was in the Sound at the Outer Banks, And I looked up at the clouds, and I realized that one of them looked like Dolly Parton eating a cake. And it was the most delicious cake in the world.
See, everybody loves cake.
Everybody loves cake. But, like, while he's in this, like, far off, like, it looked like Dolly Parton eating a cake.
And it was the most delicious cake.
And it was the most delicious cake in the world. And he said, when I kind of came to from that revelation, I looked on the beach, and I saw this girl walking her 2 dogs. So I paddled a little closer, and I realized...
Wait, he was on the water when he had
He
this
was on the
revelation?
water when he had this
When he saw
revelation.
Dolly Parton eating cake.
Dolly Parton eating a cake up in the clouds. He says, so I look on the beach, and I see this girl. She's walking her 2 dogs, so I paddle a little closer. And you know who it was? I realized that it was Alanis Morissette. And you know what, fellas? The thing I took away from that was that she'd do it for me. And, like, that was it. Like, that's all he had to say.
Wait. That's all?
That was it. Like, there was no closure. Like, I still want to know, like, did
Why
you
was
ever
Alanis
talk to
Morissette on that
Alanis
beach?
Morissette? Whatever happened with the delicious cake? Like, tell me more.
I want to hear about how delicious that cake was.
Exactly. That
Oh
cake,
my God.
it was the most delicious cake in the world. Like, and in my head, like, you know, the way I think, I'm like,
delicious.
is it red velvet, funfetti? Like, what kind of cake are we talking about? But you know what I took away from that? Alanis Morissette. She'd do it for me. You're like you would settle for Alanis Morissette, like that. You know, if the tides turned in that way, and I had a chance with Alanis Morissette, I suppose I could make that work all right.
The woman who played God in Dogma. I'm pretty sure I could hit that.
Exactly.
Everybody settles.
Yeah.
Even Alain. Oh, yeah, like the whole time you're telling it, I just am just fighting back saying the words ironic. I mean, you're
Oh
like,
yeah. What if
isn't it
God was one
ironic?
of us? Just a slob.
I know that's Sharon
one of us.
Osbourne, I'll let it slide. Holy shit.
Don't you think?
Oh my God. I remember the first time I saw that fucking video, I was just like, what am I watching?
What video?
Ironic.
Yeah.
Isn't that the one she's in the car
Yeah.
with like the 4 or 5
That was the best
personalities of
one
her?
she ever had.
Yeah, the other one you couldn't even see her fucking face.
Yeah. She was the kid and the teenager and the mom and the like other mom or dad or I don't.
It was basically like a
really know.
revolving camera inside the car.
It was like a road trip, but she played the part of everybody in the car.
Oh, wow.
It was like if Alanis Morissette was doing the Nutty Professor.
Well,
Medea's car trip.
Tyler Perry presents Alanis Morissette. So I think we figured out the formula of this. We have an idea, and then we just get down a lot of shit and record it, and then splice it all together
Yeah.
when it makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
gin and tonic start helps.
Yeah, gin and tonic.
Yeah.
All right, so we are in the middle of the Smokies and had, come up Shuck Stack, the entire just shithole that is. And,
Who are you with? Are you with
this is Barf and
just
I.
you? Just the two of you?
Just Barf and I.
Okay.
We probably did not. We probably did not see how. I think we saw 2 dudes the first night into the Smokies, and then they both work for what they called the Harris Teeter Corporation.
I like your quotation. marks.
HD
Yeah,
Corp.
nobody else.
Yeah, like it was like,
publicly
what do you do
traded.
for a living? I work for the Harris Teeter Corporation, and that was also the first time I'd ever heard of a plug, referring to tobacco. Like you just chew off,
cheek.
take a bite off of. It's like I wish I could remember the exact words that the guy said, but it was like, it's like a stick.
chaw.
Yeah, it's like a stick. And I was like, a stick? He's like, a stick. And I'm like, a stick? I have no clue. And he was like, you just take a bite off it and you just put it in it's a stick. Like, okay, right on. And I saw it the next time I was in
Stick
town.
of
Like,
tobacco?
like it'd be like Red Man, but in a stick form. It's like a solid.
Kind of like Big League Chew, but like really tight.
It's more like a candy cigar, bubblegum cigar, but of just
Like a Slim Jim. But
shit tasting
Like
tobacco.
one of those big fat Slim Jims.
Yeah, it's a Slim Jim, but it's a tobacco Slim Jim.
It's a tobacco.
And
can I, really quick, while I was on trail was when the plant for Slim Jim exploded.
Oh, back here?
Yeah.
In North Carolina?
Yeah.
Did it affect your hike?
I will tell you what, that was one of the SOS texts that I got from my mother, which, of all of the SOS texts, I can, like, name them on one hand. One of them was in the Grayson Highlands when she was like, I haven't heard from you for 5 days. I'm calling the ATC, which she did.
She's on the trail.
John and Kate +8 divorced. You need to know this. Patrick Swayze died, immediately followed by Michael Jackson died, or vice versa, whichever one came first. They were, like, within, 16 hours of each other. But the Slim Jim plant exploding was huge. And the text that I got was, just so you know, the plant on Jones Sausage Road exploded. I have already been to Kroger, Harris Teeter, and Winn-Dixie and have bought them out so that you'll have enough Slim Jims for the rest of your hike. She still has Slim Jims, like, in her pantry that every time I come over, she's like, will you take these home? And I'm like, no, I won't. Please don't make me eat those.
I thought she was just, like, really wanted you to be concerned about a North Carolina-based story. I didn't even think about Slim Jims being the main fucking point.
No, I mean, like,
fuck the people's safety.
Puss in Boots. Puss in Boots. This hike brought to you by Slim Jim. Like, I ate Slim Jims like it was going out of style with the justification of, I won't eat this for real food, but right now it's
I'm
totally
really healthy right now, so it won't matter.
It's totally justifiable. But like that was a huge concern for my mother in sending me care packages, was like, how do I send her enough Slim Jims? So when the Slim Jim factory exploded, it was a big fucking deal in the household. It was like, how are we going to acquire enough Slim Jims to get her through the next 4 months or whatever I had left?
Oh, there goes the microphone.
That's a viable concern.
Yeah, it's, it's up there.
Hey, sure.
Sorry to segue out of your story where you just happened to mention Slim Jims, but...
Hey, anytime you can use Slim Jim and explosion in the same sentence, it's a success.
Well, I just the main point is that when you're hiking out of Fontana, the first 2-3 days are just basically like, I'm going uphill.
Yeah.
And you get up to Klingman's Dome, and then it's like, okay, I'm going to spend the next 3 days going downhill. And so did that, and so got up to whatever the hell that shelter is right underneath Klingman's Dome, going north. This is going to happen a lot on this show. I don't fucking remember any of this.
Ice Water Springs?
No, that's
the other one. That's on the other side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But so whatever that shelter is, we get there, and it was the first time on the entire trail where I did not cook dinner.
The show needs to invest in the guidebook.
Yes, it does. And just right here, we could just have the trail poster.
That's right. Yeah.
And but
We'll
not
do
as
that.
detailed as yours. We'll talk about your trail poster later. Right. But so we spent the entire whatever. You just get up to that shelter, and I'm just dead. And we get there, and it's full of weekend people and that kind of thing. And this one guy who basically tortured his 7-year-old daughter by making her hike the entire length of the Smokies, And he had, she didn't carry anything. But he had like 110 pounds on his back, something like that. Like making it as comfortable for her as possible. And I admired that. But it was, like I said, the first night I did not cook a dinner on the entire trail. I sat down, I ate a Snickers bar, and that was it. And I'm sitting around, these people were like, we got there, and like these people were like getting ready to make a fire. And like 2 hours later, these people are still trying to make a fire. And I'm just miserable. Like, this is just ridiculous. I cannot stand this. It's just like, please, I just want to fire. I'm just going to warm up, whatever. And it just winds up being a shitstorm of a night, the entire night. And this guy who had his daughter with him, he really just wanted like his daughter to experience what thru-hikers are doing. And everybody else is in the shelters in jeans, So like, he's not asking their opinions. And so he's making conversation with us, but we're just in no mood. It's nothing against him. It's just one of those nights. And he's like, so, do you guys know any bird calls? And it was like straw number 9 million for me. And I was like, bird calls? I don't know any... I didn't say any fucking... I was like, I don't know any bird calls. And he's like, oh, because I'm really into them. And it was like, oh, I'm kind of embarrassing him from his daughter. And I kind of like, oh, shit. And so the next morning, get up, and he went on and on about bird calls that night. But the next morning, gets up, and like he's rushing to pack his pack and like hurrying his 7-year-old daughter because he's leaving at the same time as us. He's trying to get out of there, and so he and his daughter are keeping up with us all the way up to Klingman's. And it's late March, I guess, at this point. And so it's still cold. And as we get up, we're hitting snow. And like the entire observation deck was just ice. And he's trying to keep up, and we're not trying to be mean. You know, we're just like, we're cruising. You know, we're just hiking the way through Hiker's Hike. I'm not trying to make his weekend. And so he's just like cruising along with us, and like, hey, yeah, you know, and he would like blurt out like random things like, well, you know, how many miles a day do you guys hike?
Hey guys, slow,
Hey, how much food do you have in your pack? Like all the questions. And we're doing it, and we're trying to be nice, but we're like, we're not going as fast as we can. And then he stops. We're like, all right, we'll see you at the top, and we just took off.
Photo.
And I got up, did the photo thing, looked around, couldn't see shit because it's,
Cleveland's
Western North Carolina. And it was like, somebody had broken their neck or something the next day. So anyway, on the way down, we ran into a couple people that were, about our age, and they were hoofing it, and they lived in the area, so they were always hiking that. And they said, just go ahead and get up on the road. Just take Klingman's Road down. And we're like, it's
too soon.
It's too soon. Yeah, I'm too pure at this point. Like, no, not going to do that.
Have you ever said that before?
Too pure?
Yeah. I'm too pure. I don't think
Probably not.
I say it all the time. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
So we're cruising down, and like literally post-holing where like your knee is at your ear. Like every once in a while, it's like 3-4 feet deep of snow. It's crazy. It was pretty cool. It's the only time it really happened on the trail. But cruising down, then we wind up running into these two dudes that were not hiking up to the snow. They had turned around. And they started talking to us. They're like, so, what do you guys do? Like, we just, hike, and just kind of talked about hiking. And he's like, oh, well, okay, well, that's pretty cool. And so we just blast past these dudes. That's the dogs. And so we blast, they're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Right on. We'll talk to you later. We blast past them and go down to Collins Shelter, I believe is right below.
Collins, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So go right below the Collins Shelter.
Trees.
Well, we get there, and there is this bag full of Mountain House, Natural High, whatever, dehydrated meals, with a note that says, didn't need them for the hike. I'm like, okay, so we're looking at like $24 worth of freeze-dried food sitting right there.
On.
Yeah.
Like, hell yeah. So we get that, and we're like, well, shit, I'm going to go ahead and put that in the pack. And we start cruising on down the trail, because Collins was a little bit off the trail, I recall.
Sure was.
And so we wind up running back into the two dudes we'd run into a little bit further up the mountain. And they're like, where are you guys going? We thought you guys were stopping back there. And it's only like 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. At that point, we're like, well, we're going to cruise on. We're going to Icewater Springs. They're like, oh, man. They're blown away that we were hiking all that much in one day. And they're like, well, if you guys are fast enough, we're going to take the road down. But if you guys catch us in Newfound Gap, then come see us in the parking lot. And we're like,
All right.
okay. They're like, yeah, we got some stuff to unload that we don't need because we didn't stay out as long as we thought or whatever. Like, okay. And honestly, Barf and I have decided that was the fastest we had ever hiked up until that point.
To get you,
we just boom, over trees, around shit. And we get all the way back to Newfound Gap, and like we're getting to their car. We see them walking down the road as we're walking up. Like, wow. What's up? They're like, oh shit, we didn't think you guys would be here. We're like, yeah. And guy's like, all right. He's like, yeah, come on over here. So we go to his car, and he's like, look out, it's busy. I mean, it's just like a constant ring of traffic in the middle of it, and just cars everywhere. And we're sitting there, we're like, all right. He's like, yeah, come over here, come over. I'm like, all right, just goes to the cooler, and he pulls out I think he pulled out 8 beers in bottles. And we're like, bottles. Okay.
Yeah.
And he's like, here you go. So I got 4 beers apiece, or it might have been 6. I don't remember. It was whatever it was. It was more than enough to get you drunk when you're on the trail.
Just sat there and drunk them.
Yeah. And he was just like, yeah, you better not drink them here. He's like, cops are around here. Like, okay. We take 10 fucking steps from the car. Hey, boys, come on over here. And I was like, oh, shit. And he's like, let me see your passes. Let me see your permits. Mm-hmm. And, because you got to have the permit and smokies. And, okay, got him strapped to the back of the pack. Like, here you go. And he's like, okay, cool. We just got a lot of spring breakers out here right about now, so I just want to make sure you guys are legit. Here you go. Thanks. Like, sure thing. And so then we take that shit-ass hike up to Icewater Springs. Get up to Icewater Springs, and Barf was always faster, so I'd get there 5, 10, 20 an hour past him. And he's like, I get up, and this guy goes, hey, how you doing, fella? with this, like, it was a Tennessee accent. I'm not doing a great one. He's like, how you doing, fella? I said, doing fine. He's like, why don't you get up there to that shelter? We got, what the hell, how did he put it? He was like, got you a barbecue sandwich and a cold beer up there. I'm like, okay. And it turned out...
Excuse me while I run from here on to the shelter.
Dude, we got there on this night where these, like, 8-9 guys come up every year, and they stay at Icewater Springs. They hike up not from Newfound, but from somewhere else. It takes them, like, 2 days to get there, or something like that. And then they stay at LeConte for, like, 3 days.
That's pretty sweet.
So, yeah, so however the hell long you can stay there. So they would always do that every year. But so they would just get shithouse drunk at Icewater Springs and, you know, have a good time. So they had brought up this, it was some pulled pork barbecue from Tennessee somewhere. It was good. So we enjoyed that. And then they're like, yeah, if you go over to the spring, Icewater Springs, there's actually still some snow there. Mm-hmm. And there's just like the whole hill right by the spring is just like just pocked with bottled beer, and it's like, what the hell do I have these 4 beers for, you know? And so these guys are like, don't even worry about cooking, you know, we're taking care of you. I'm like, all right, so man, they just, you know, kind of like your ladies, they're just watching us just mow down on this stuff. They're like, we don't want to carry it tomorrow. Like, we bring up extra because we know we run into thru-hikers. Like, all right,
nicest thing you can do is eat it for them.
Yeah, exactly, you know, and so.
Give the folks what they want to see.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Give them a show. And so they're like, so then it turns into one by one. That's one of those double-decker, you know, shelters in the Smokies. And so, like, we're on top with about, like, 3 or 4 other people. And there's, like, 1 or 2 other hikers there. I think there's, like, 1 other thru-hiker. And he's, like, that guy that doesn't want anything to do with people, but he still stays in the fucking shelter. Mm-hmm. And so he's just, you know, he's balled up in his corner over there. And one by one, these dudes who know each other would, like, pop up and stand in front, like, with the chain link fence behind them, and just basically 2 stages in front of them, or 2 levels of people watching them. They were like, "Hey, did you hear the one about the?" And they would just, like, tell fucking joke after joke after joke after joke. Yeah, and it would just be like, "Oh, no, that's not how it's told." And, like, the other guy would get up and be like, "Da da da da."
Wow.
And so then it's like 9:30 at night. You know, we've had many beers, and then we decide, I'm still hungry, you know? So we wind up making, Barf winds up making 2 of the Mountain House meals we found in the shelter. And it was just like, all right, now so he makes up these things. We're just sitting there eating like mountain chili, whatever the hell it is, you know, just textured vegetable proteins. Blah, 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 blah. And about 9:30 or so, like, you can tell there's like some people walking up. They didn't come from the AT, they came from another direction. And because I think that trail comes up right at the bottom of Icewater Springs.
Yeah.
So these 2 people come up, and it's like some doofy ass dude and just a trail hot 9 or 10. And she was a freshman at UT, you know, Tennessee, and he was a sophomore or junior, and he had been there once before or something like that. I was like, yeah, baby, I'll take you up there. And apparently he took her up, like, there's a couple of trails you can take to get to Icewater Springs besides the AT, and he took the worst fucking one. And there she is, just hot as she can be, and it's just like 45 to 68-year-old dudes everywhere. And they're like, you brought her up, which one? And all of them from Tennessee, Alabama, these accents, just like,
hell, boy!
And they just basically roasted this motherfucker.
You obviously didn't want to get laid tonight, is what you're saying.
They roasted this dude for like an hour, and then we'd be like, hey, did you hear the one about the... And they just get up and keep doing that. And it was great. I was like, man, this is great, man. It was like one of the happiest nights I had on the trail.
And the Smokies were good for those.
Oh, yeah. And I woke up the next morning, and I was like, all right, I need to go pee. And I walked around the side of the shelter, and I was like, I don't need to walk that far. It was early. And it was one of those where you're like, oh, that's not going to be pee. And I run for the privy.
Better change my plans quick.
You buy one, you get the other free.
Yeah. I ran to the privy. And then I got to the privy and realized I don't have any TP.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
And that from there began the 24 hours of me having basically like Giardia for 24 hours. And later on, it turned out that there were like, this won't be on there. Turned out later on there was like, we came across
Oh, I think we should say.
Okay.
The fact that you prefaced it with this won't be on there.
Well, I just remember that there was this journal entry. I want to say somewhere in the northern part of the Smokies, like last shelter or two. And there was this bullseye kind of design in a notebook. And it had random hikers' names around it. And in the middle was this one hiker who was apparently known as Vomit Boy. Or something like Puke Boy. Something like that.
You think he chose that himself?
Self-namer.
I found out later on, basically, they were just like, a shelter full of thru hikers that were like a couple of days ahead of us. And the dude just like woke up in the shelter and was like, bah!
Oh, you know what? I think Mountain Jam, the guy I started hiking with, I think he was in that shelter because he got sick and ended up off the trail. I mean, it was apparently
right around Mountain Mamas?
News. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just passed.
Just passed, yeah.
It was a little past that, actually.
Yeah, I think it was either like Cosby Knob that it happened in, or it wasn't the last one, Davenport Gap.
Smokies. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So apparently, like, all these people got sick. And, in the days before the text message, internet, whatever, they had just, like, people had just written down their names in a shelter, like, where it was like, oh, yeah, I got sick at this one. And, like, the bullseye went out from, like, the furthest shelter to where it happened. And I was like, oh, well, what winds up...
When the CDC comes looking for my body,
Yeah.
Here's where I want them to start.
Exhibit A.
Oh, man. All right, so we'll take a break on that one. There's now that there's a microphone in front of you, and you're part of one of my... Is that too far away? Do we need to scoot it in for you?
What, this microphone?
I mean, you can just move the whole structure in if it's
I
easier
think it's
for you.
okay. I don't
Up a
know.
little.
How does it sound?
Little.
Can you
It
hear
sounds
me?
fine. I just want to make sure you
Okay.
work.
Okay.
Wouldn't-
Back a little.
Back a little.
Up a little. Back a little.
Me or it?
Perfect. You're part of one of my favorite stories that I've ever heard on the AT, and I believe it happened in the Smokies. And it also involved a couple of guys who brought a couple of beverages. You, Twilight.
You have to keep going because
I don't want to give away too much.
Lean away from the microphone because that will work.
I can't remember it though. Holy Jesus Christ! Jesus Christ! Oh crap!
It was
it was a wonderful story. It was the most.
the guy. The whiskey bottle falls over, and you guys. And there's a big discussion of, is it whiskey or is it bourbon?
Right.
And I think that's going on between Twilight, Mountain Jam, you, and somebody else. I feel like maybe Mountain Jam's
Holy
woman.
cow! I gotta text him and see if I can get him to remember.
And there's that.
Holy shit!
Yeah, Jesus Christ! Well, the two guys roll in drunk.
Right.
They roll in drunk after you guys are pretty much everybody's settled in. They roll in drunk. They're supposed to be in that shelter. They get there. They make a bunch of noise setting up top.
Right, yeah.
And then there's a discussion of, I smell whiskey. No, I think you smell bourbon. No, I think I smell whiskey.
That's right.
And
that's right.
the bottle fell over, those two guys.
Right.
And then, like, they basically were, like, so fucked up when they got there. Like, they said, like, it was like in the middle of the night, the guy's like, Jesus Christ. And it's coming from the bunk up top, like, where the fuck are we? Where the fuck are we? Guy's like, look, I don't know. But just be cool. We'll figure it out in the morning. We'll figure it out in the morning.
Can you imagine waking up like in a Smokies shelter? Like, yeah, my immediate thought would be like, I have somehow teleported to a concentration camp.
But the best fucking part about the story is the other guy goes, no, I gotta get my bearings.
Oh, he gets up.
He stands up on top, falls off, and this is back when they still had chain link across the front. And the dude just steps off, like, the top step of the bunk, rolls, and apparently lands, like, against the chain link fence. And at this point in time, like, everybody's headlamp has hit the guy. Like, what's going on? And the guy's laying there, like, with his ass over his fucking head. And
he's got, like, 8 headlamps on all of a sudden.
He farts, doesn't he? He fucking farts.
You can't make this up.
And the guy, like, he's just like, huh, and he, like, figures out his way out the chain link door, gets out, and the other guy's like, oh shit, and he goes out there and tries to help him or something like that.
Oh,
and but the best part about it is at the end of it, like, you guys are all just sitting there, like, after they both leave, everybody's just like, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ.
Holy shit.
So throughout the life of the show, we're going to ask people to call in and tell us about the experiences they're having on the trail. Recently, we asked people to call in and tell us about their experiences with trail magic, be it good, bad, strange, awesome. So we did that, and we only had one person call in because really, truly, I only asked like 2 people. And so the other person, she called in. She's a really good friend. She also hiked in 1998. And let me just see if I can pull it up here.
So I think this is the right number to call to leave Pox a message about one of my Appalachian Trail experiences. So my name is Flutterby. I thru-hiked in 98. Best worst, I don't know, but I would say weirdest, maybe scary, only scary moment on the trail was hiking into Damascus, Virginia. I was a good mile ahead of my crew, Little Mac, off-duty. And one other person who was just section hiking. Her name was Clover. And I came upon a pile of stuff on the edge of the trail that just looked very strange. There was a comb, a little black comb like you get at the barber shop, a flannel shirt, a pair of jeans, and a plastic bag. Just seemed like someone ditched all their stuff, and I instantly got the creeps. And I looked into this plastic bag, and there were papers, prescriptions, and release forms from a nearby mental hospital. So that completely freaked me out, and I hadn't hiked southbound at all on the trail up until that point. But I quickly hoofed it southbound to a place where I could just sit and wait for my friends to catch up with me. And I had like a Swiss Army knife in one hand and my trekking poles in another hand. And eventually my friends caught up with me, and we walked really closely together to this spot. And I just had this creepy feeling that someone was watching me, which was probably my imagination. But anyway, off-duty was an off-duty nurse, and he recognized the prescriptions as being like an antipsychotic medication and a side effect medication. Anyway, we brought it to the police when we got into town, and they expressed some amount of concern and said, well, we might need you guys to take us back to the spot where you found it. And I remember we all just said, yeah, well, we'll be hiking north. If you can find us, we'll be happy to take you to the spot. But, of course, that never happened. Anyway, that was my one moment on the trail where I was a little bit scared. Otherwise, all good times. All right, Pox, take it easy.
So obviously that had nothing to fucking do with trail magic at all. But it leads us to another discussion that we could probably continue next week, which is crazy people on the trail.
Aren't they all crazy people on the trail?
Well, Flutterby actually followed this up with a text. She's like, she forgot to say that. It's like the best part, which I forgot to say, is that the release forms from the mental institution said, quote, release to the Appalachian Trail.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like they knowingly released them to the trail.
I wish I had papers like that.
Well, it's really weird because I actually set up a shuttle about 1.5 years ago for a former boss of mine and current boss of yours, Puss. And he wanted to go from, he wanted to go from, I can't remember where, somewhere north of Hot Springs. There's actually a hostel that popped up in 1998, but it wasn't really up and going probably when you or I went by. But so it's about a 1/4 mile off the trail. I can't remember the name of it, but it's just north of Hot Springs somewhere. But really nice guy. He let our boss park there, and looked after the car. So I got there early. And so I get there, and I wind up talking with the guy for a while. And he said that this is during like the 2009-10, shit-ass recession. And he winds up saying that like lots of people were getting like let go from mental institutions and halfway houses that were losing funding, and they were literally like just like setting them free in the woods. And so this guy was telling me that like a bunch of people had shown up and they were just like just crazy people like with a bedroll, just out in the woods.
It reminds me of the movie What About Bob, when his doctor writes him the prescription to take a vacation from his problems. I'm on vacation. A vacation from my problems. Don't hassle me. I'm local.
God, I want one of those shirts. I looked up one of those shirts on Amazon, and they're like $30.
They have to make them,
and you can only get it in mono.
Ice blue with like lime green lettering. Yeah, don't hassle me. I'm local.
Always wanted to wear one of those around Western North Carolina.
You know, the one shirt that I always wanted, the one that I coveted from, I guess, Bland, Virginia. From the Exxon station. This shirt, and I believe Barf had this shirt.
Barf had this shirt.
And it said, it had a picture of the Eiffel Tower, and it said, Paris, France. Then it had a picture of the Colosseum, and it said, Rome, Italy. Then it had the picture of the Exxon sign, Bland, Virginia. I mean, you know, 3 peas in a pod.
I think he actually had one that had Big Ben on it. And it was
is that right? Okay.
And then maybe the Colosseum and a little,
I see London, I see France. It's going somewhere from that.
Bland, Virginia.
When I was at Ablebridge, the convenience store had only in child size medium, which at my trail hottest I could fit into. But it was this like charcoal gray with black ringer, like cartoon of like this cartoon man standing on a mountain, and it said across it, "This tired body summited Mount Katahdin." And I used to wear the thing. It was tight enough that like I didn't have to wear a bra. And I was like, this shirt makes my tits look amazing. It was like my hottie make hot, like I'm one of the boys shirts. And I left it at a guy's house and have not seen it since. But it's fucking one of those trees that like one of those shirts that like
one of those trees.
One of those trees, man.
It's like having the guy in front of you.
It's one of those very awkward. Like I had to send him a message on Facebook and was like, "Did I leave my Katahdin shirt at your house?" And he was like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." So I haven't seen it since then. But it was the best shirt ever.
It's like when George Costanza leaves the hat at that girl's house. God damn it.
This tired body summited Mount Katahdin.
Oh man, yeah, no. Flutterby. I remember she told that story one time when she visited us in the mountains, and it was just she told it was much more. I asked her to compress it to about 2 minutes. It was 2:22.
She did a good job.
She did a great job, and but yeah, like she did leave out that one part where it was just like it reminds me of one day leaving Port Clinton. Had a
Were you drunk too?
Fucking blast in Port Clinton.
I recall there being a bar.
Were you there with us?
Might have been. I don't know.
I don't remember. I remember that we got to Port Clinton.
It was a good time.
And
when I was there too.
Barf and I decided, like, dude, we're getting a room at the Port Clinton Hotel.
Oh, yeah.
And so we got it. And one thing I remember, there was this fucking awesome monkey calendar in there.
Because what monkey calendar isn't awesome?
Dude, it was 12 months of, like, monkey astronaut, monkey plumber, monkey
Blue
Tour
Steel.
de France. Yeah, monkey blue. Like, it was like bam, bam, bam. And we laughed our monkey asses off at it. But I just remember...
Le Tigre.
Le Tigre. I remember one of the most awesome things about Pennsylvania in general were the free drink coupons, like tokens.
The chips.
Yeah. I was never given any of those because they all thought that I was way too young, even though I was 25.
Oh, dude.
Like,
it's a shame.
I can remember being on Ron Haven's bus.
If you just had that shirt earlier.
With one of the guys with the tokens for a free drink when I got there. And... Ron Haven fucking driving his bus was like, who knows what the word Nantahala means? And I like raised my hand like, I know what it means. And he was like, what does it mean? And I said, why, land of the noonday sun. And that guy looked at me and was like, I'll buy you a soda when you get to my bar. And I was like, God damn it, I just want a beer when I get... I am 25 years old. You're not my supervisor.
Do you mean just soda?
Just wear a big blown up version of your
I'm
license.
older than I look. God damn it.
Just wear it on your shirt.
Anyway,
it's actually
good.
a tight shirt without a bra with your license on it.
It's fitting.
It's like Alanis Morissette.
Boom, it's fitting. And it'll work for you. Oh, man.
It'll
Now-
be
Tie in.
Now, I think Pennsylvania for a while was simply a march to bar, because we went from,
Yeah.
was it from Port Clinton to the Doyle to Duncannon?
Well, I remember that. Wait, hold on. There was something about Port Clinton. There was something back
Well,
there.
yes, there
So
was.
the crazy person. That was really what it was about. So leaving, like, we stayed at Port Clinton for like.
Is Port Clinton the one with the shelter that you stay at in the middle of town?
Yeah, it's like the huge pavilion.
Yeah, the pavilion, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember like somebody pulled up like this. Like we stayed in the Port Clinton hotel the first night, shithoused, and then the next day it was like, all right, we got to get out of here. Went and parked our stuff down in the pavilion, and then came up, of course, and drank. But I just remember just kept getting these free tokens, and they would just give them out, and it was awesome. Like, it was like a great, like, from everything I've ever heard about buying alcohol in Pennsylvania, it's fucked up. Like, as far as like you just want to go get a beer, it's like it's a little bit of a pain in the ass.
But you go to a bar.
Go to a bar.
You go to a bar at happy hour. Happy hours were
Walk
the
out
deal.
with a fucking case of beer. You're like, I'm done drinking here. How about another case to take home with me? And that leads to another fucking awesome story that you've told me about at the Port Clinton, where the guy left his car running out front.
That's right. This fellow was in there drinking, and we had lots of tokens floating around that bar. I mean, it was right around happy hour.
Were you playing video poker?
No,
We
no.
played the shit out of video poker.
Oh, is that right? No.
And it was like nudie poker too, and there was like all the
Nudie
women.
poker.
Yeah, there was like a nudie
And
like,
free tokens?
free
Why
tokens.
did you ever leave Pennsylvania?
It's like basically Pennsylvania is a gigantic Dave and Buster's.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, so the guy.
Oh, the guy. We're sitting there drinking, and we're drinking a bunch, and we go in there, and not long after we sit down at the bar, this fellow walks in and says, "Hey, Earl, hey, your car's running." He goes, "Oh yeah, I know. Battery's dead. Gotta leave it running." He goes, "Okay, sure." Sits down. He has a beer. A few minutes later, the guy comes in and goes, "Hey, Earl, man. Hey, your car's running." He goes, "That's all right. It's all right. Battery's dead. Gotta leave it running." You know, this goes on for about, I don't know, 6 or 8 more patrons.
at like 10 a.m.
That's right. So, about 4 hours later, this guy comes in and says, "Hey, Earl, your car's been idling up the hill for about 4 hours. I cut it off." And Earl jumps up and goes, "What the hell did you do?" He goes, "I'm just kidding, man. I know your battery's dead." And he goes, "All right." Goes back to drinking beer. We're there the entire 6 hours. We're at this bar. Now, the story is not that we're at this bar for 6 hours. This guy's car.
besides the point.
That's
Nothing to do
That's
with it.
right. This guy's car idled outside for 6 hours. He didn't just stop by for a beer. He was making a day of it. I mean, he had to go fill up his tank to go idle at the bar.
Priorities, man. I mean,
Well, that's
he has them.
that's right.
I remember at the Doyle, there was a guy. We did the same thing. It seems like a lot of people do, the 26 miler from Boiling Springs in. And the one thing I do regret is not having a drink at the Boiling Springs pub, like a Bloody Mary. We didn't leave until like 11, and just fucking hoofed it across those fields, and it was pretty cool. But didn't get in. It was one of those nights where we hiked down to the Earl Schaefer shelter right before you get to Duncan.
That baseball bat floor.
Jesus Christ! We get down there. We didn't know anything about it, and we're like literally like just dehydrated. There's no water along that area. You're just like cruising. And so I remember we get down to the Earl Schaefer shelter, and this guy is like camped in there. I think it was a hiker we knew. He's like, "The water is a half mile all downhill from here."
It's always downhill.
Yeah,
Damn it.
We're like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah." So Barf and I pull out our 2 Nalgene bottles, and we're like, "Well, I can't remember who had more, probably him." And we, put it all into one, and then just like even it out. Like, all right, we each have a quarter of a.
Oh man!
And we're just like, oh my god, just like like cracked lips. You're like, oh. And it was one of those where we walked into that convenience store in Duncan, walked in. And I just remember turning around. It was like a really small convenience store, and I held up a Gatorade and like, "I'm going to pay for this, but it's going to be empty when I get up there." And they're like, "No." And I remember we walked up to the Doyle, and it was pitch fucking black. And got up to the Doyle, and like I just see like this ember of a fucking cigarette light up, and it was like really tall up, and we just hear, "Well, we heard you boys were coming."
Never a good sign.
And it was Prof.
Oh,
And he's
That's
like,
always the best
always
sign.
a good sign.
he's like, "We're waiting for you inside." I'm like, "Oh yeah." And there was a guy at the time. I think it was Zen,
Okay.
and he wound up buying. They had made it through happy hour, and happy hour was like,
I like the way you put that. They made it through.
well,
survived happy hour.
By meaning they made it through happy hour, it was something like 35, or it was like 45-cent drafts.
Yeah, it was ridiculously cheap. I recall that.
And so I
And people
remember,
would go up to the bar and slap down a 20 and say, "Okay,
Yeah.
you just let us know when this
Yippee-ki-yay,
runs out."
motherfuckers.
so these guys would give like, $1. So what was happening was it was 45-cent drafts. So Zen decided he was not going to stop drinking beers until he had, had enough nickels. So he had 9 nickels to get to 45 cents. So he would drink 9 beers, get a free one. Drink 9 beers, and of course they're like 7 ounce,
sure.
little teeny tiny watered down
Like you
Yinglings.
do, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, in the Doyle, and so we're sitting there, and he's just, it's like 9:30, and we're just getting there, and haven't had a drink, I've had a Gatorade in the last 5 hours, and I just like, oh Jesus. And people are just like, "Oh, you guys did it 26 miles. You're the only ones that did it today." We're like, "Oh, sweet. Well, yeah, we didn't see any of you motherfuckers." Found out a bunch of people had either been there for like 2 days or had found a way to get there by a car. And
it's easy to get stuck at the Doyle.
yeah, it
really
was.
easy to get stuck at the
It was
door.
not.
You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
It was not. I'll clarify. It was not Zen who was yellow blazing that day, but I just remember
Yeah, careful who you attach that tag to.
Yeah, no, I was not trying to incriminate anyone there. It was somebody else. But yeah, it was just like, so we just drank, and I'm just sitting there, and it was like, still a shitload of locals at that bar. And I remember these 2 guys kind of like,
And were you hassling them?
no, I wasn't hassling. They had on the shirts. And they came up, and one guy kind of sidled up next to me, and I was kind of close to the corner. So one guy came and sat almost on the corner. The other guy came and sat maybe like the other side of him.
Gotta watch out for you by the sidles.
Yeah, he was sidler. And so I was like, they were like, so we hear you guys hiked from Boiling Springs. I'm like, yeah. He's like, what's the big deal with that? And I was like, well, it's basically a marathon. It's like 26 miles or something. I think it's something like that. And so it's basically a marathon, kind of. And he's like, oh, okay. So you see Johnny over there? I'm like, yeah. And it was this dude. He just looked crazy. He had a crazy Einstein kind of hair, but brown. And he's like, see Johnny over there? Johnny's a section hiker. I'm like, oh, really? Right on, And as always, I have great respect for section hikers.
Absolutely.
And I was like, oh, really? And I'm taking it at face value. Like, oh, Johnny's a section hiker. They're like, yeah, he lives down the road here. He hikes from his house down to the bar every night. He just does that section. And it was like, oh, okay. You're mocking me. Awesome. But no, had a great. Actually, one of my most favorite nights on the trail was definitely in the Doyle.
Yeah,
that was great. Yeah, that's
It's kind of scary and exciting all at once.
You have a great picture of it in the Doyle because your room had a huge curling piece of paint, curling or wallpaper curling off the wall.
It was not a place where you actually got into the bed.
Yeah.
You just put your sleeping bag down.
Yeah.
On the bed if you're brave, or on the floor if you're not.
I remember that Barf did not let me lose the fight of, hey, I'm going to stay in the bed. And he's like, cool. I'm going to put my shit on the floor.
Got the floor. Dibs floor.
Yeah, and it was one of those where I'm like,
Thermarest. Oh, yeah.
yeah, it was one of those I'm like, ooh, I think I messed up. I think I got the wrong one. I remember one of the slideshows that you and I did, that there was this one picture of you. You're just kind of standing like, ugh. And there's this
I probably had it,
7-foot long curling piece of wallpaper covered in paint curling off the wall.
There's nothing like a place where you check into your room, you take your key to the padlock, you unpadlock the outside, you walk inside and you padlock yourself in.
It's always a hint of a really wonderful experience.
Oh, yeah.
When a padlock is
Class all
involved.
the
Did you
way.
stay there?
No. It's a shame.
Oh, man.
And apparently...
I stayed in many places like that, like when I was in like third world India, but but never at the Doyle.
And now word was that there were about 5 keys that would open all the padlocks. There were only like 5 keys for all the the 40 padlocks they had. So chances are your key would open up 6 other rooms.
The padlock's there for like personal comfort value.
That's right.
Not
That's
really
right.
for safety.
That's right. Once you're inside and padlock yourself in, I mean, you're in.
Flip.
Something I had in the pre-show meeting we had. Something.
Is that what you call that?
Yeah.
The pre-show meeting. Wow.
The part where
Was that before I got here, or was I here for
that was
that?
the part where I didn't hit record.
Ooh.
So the production meeting we had,
high dollar
for the catering. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. I think I built up a story about that I put you through, Puss, the other week, but we were talking about the monastery. And if you had been hiking around with us, I don't think so. But
I don't think we were. I don't
was
think
a
we
point
were
where,
together at that point. We were always in the vicinity. We were always like a week or 2 ahead or behind you.
right. There was a point where, right there at the monastery, and I wound up having a. I'm going to start over. So around the monastery we left, and I remember that there was at least Prof and Peace Pipe and a couple of other people around us. And we had monastery was one of the best experiences I had on the trails. It was great. And just walking around the grounds, I strongly suggested, even though you shouldn't take any of our advice that comes down on this recording. But I just remember we left, and it was a great next couple of days. Fairly easy hiking. I think it goes into Harriman, where the lemon squeezer is.
That's right.
Yeah. It's just
kind of rolled for a little while till it got to.
Yeah, I mean there were ups and downs, but nothing like Pennsylvania punishing rock exposed me ups. Right. And so I just remember I just remember cruising along, and there's a lake somewhere along that way, like within the day after the monastery, like maybe that first day's hike out of the monastery, and at the road crossings, there were these little 8.5 by 11 white pieces of paper that said, "Michael, please, Michael, come home." And there was a picture of this really weird looking dude, and not really weird looking dude. I mean, it's just some guy.
I remember seeing those pictures.
Okay, yeah. Yes. And I just remember, Michael, please come home. You need to have your medication, Michael. I mean, they were just really creepy signs, and you're like, is this for real? Like, are actually people out there doing this? And so, whatever that shelter is, that's right before you get to Harriman Parkway. Where there's a series of 4-lane roads. Yeah. There was a shelter that was right next to a road. Okay. And I remember that we wound up popping in there, and it was end of a long day. It was a good day. It was relaxed kind of first day after the monastery thing. And so I got there, and there was somebody grilling out like hot dogs, hamburgers kind of thing, because it was right there. I mean, you could basically drive up to that shelter. And of course, there was a few houses right out in front of the back door of it. But so it wound up that it was just kind of like this really relaxed evening, and we're sitting there, and we had pretty much felt like we had seen everybody that was on the trail that day, because we weren't going fast, weren't going slow. We got in kind of late. No big deal. Relaxed day. And sure enough, we hear Prof gets up to go to the bathroom, go to the privy, and we hear the door shut and to the privy, and then Prof walks up, and he looks at all of us like, who just went to the privy? And we're like, none of us. And he's like, huh. And so we're all like, oh, it must be Michael. Right. He doesn't have his medication. And so we kind of cruised around, just kind of like, all right. We kind of all walked around, looking around. And then sure enough, we hear, boom. And somebody walked out of the privy. And we're like, all right, well, that was kind of weird. It's right at dark. And so it was about these people are packing up after they cooked out. They're really nice people. So everybody's kind of getting in. So it's Prof and Peace Pipe, myself, Barf, and some other random older thru-hiker. And at that time, I think a lot of us had earplugs. And so I had earplugs in, and somebody was going to snore. And wound up waking up like some odd time, like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. But waking up kind of like, there's a lot of commotion. And I took an earplug out, and I realized like there's people walking around. I look outside, and I think Peace Pipe's smoking a cigarette, or somebody's smoking a cigarette outside. And there's, headlamps and stuff like that. Like, what the hell? And so something had happened that spooked Peace Pipe. And she felt like somebody's like, oh, it was a mouse. Like, no, something more than a mouse. Like, okay. And so everybody was kind of on edge, and kind of calms down, and Prof goes walking out the side to go take a leak. And he walks right up to like where the hedges were, kind of before you get to those houses over there. But the houses are still a good ways away. And he's like, getting ready to take a leak, and he's all of a sudden this guy's like, is everything okay? He's like, yeah. He's like, I thought I heard someone scream. And he's like, well, yeah, it was my wife. I mean, she got spooked by something. It's like, but everything's all right. I'm like, yeah, I think so. I'm like, okay. And it was like just some fucking dude in the bushes. Like, randomly in the bushes. Not like he come from the house. Like, he was over off to the other side. It's like, everything all right? Yeah, so that was a weird.
I would have
so
shit
like,
myself.
Yeah, no kidding.
But the best part is, I had no clue about any of that. I would get up the next morning like, so what was going on? Like,
Saw some commotion up.
Yeah,
Looks like somebody had to get up.
I thought about smoking a cigarette. Somebody had one. I was like, there was nothing going on. I was just like, oh, all right. Right back to sleep,
Oh
earplug, meep. So yeah, I was like, what the fuck? Michael?
He's supposed to go home.
That motherfucker needs to go home and take his medication. But yeah, we were all certain. I was like, that's Michael. It's fucking Michael. So next week's theme?
Next week's theme is
Crazy people?
Crazy people.
Okay.
You should call in if you have a really great crazy people story.
Yeah.
Or if you are one.
Or if you are one.
Either
better.
or. I have a great crazy person down the street from me story, but that doesn't have anything to do with the trail.
It's funny. It's funny. In real life, Puss and I do have a common crazy person in our life.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
She lives down the street from me and happens to find herself often in Pox's place of business. So, yeah, I finally this weekend had to call the police on her.
Oh, is that right?
And they were like, oh, Karen, we know her. We deal with her on a weekly basis.
Wow.
She's more of a nuisance than a problem. Don't mind
More
her.
of a nuisance than a problem.
Than a danger, really.
That's what I want the police to say about me.
They pretty much said,
More
like...
of a nuisance than a problem.
No, they pretty much said, like, don't worry, her family knows what to do when they start losing control of her, and you're like, no, I don't want control to be lost.
That's right,
like,
by the time I see her, control's gone.
Yeah, by the time that she's asking me for money, and when I don't give her any, she's like, you fucking bitch, I don't care if I die or not, and like, you're like, no, Karen, we're all safe here, it's fine.
Karen,
it's gonna be okay.
Oh, God. Puss, did you have somebody you were going to recommend? Or something you were going to recommend?
I don't actually know his information. I was going to say maybe Johnny Swank.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Johnny Swank.
I bet you can tell a story.
I bet he could. He might be a guest on this show one day. I don't know.
one day
if he comes out of his shell.
Maybe we'll give him his own show for one episode.
I think so, yeah.
But Johnny Swank, you should look him up on Etsy. He's got some excellent North Carolina themed t-shirts, as well as some miscellany, and no matter what, there's always fun to be had, especially if you want to listen to some Frito-Caster music and have
a 3-string
have a good time.
Guitar.
Yurt enthusiast, Frito-Caster enthusiast, fun t-shirt enthusiast. Check him out on Etsy for sure. That's Johnny Swank and his t-shirts.
Most definitely. I actually wore a North Carolina. He actually made a
few shirts for my wife, a little stinker, to wear up into Minnesota while she's up there for a few weeks. Yeah, she has a 919 Y'alls and a couple others. And then he actually, hot off the press, made me I really like, you guys can kind of tell, I kind of like the lightish blue, not Carolina blue. Mm-hmm. You understand that?
Never to be confused.
Never to be confused. Just kind of a...
Yeah, but what happens when it fades?
Steel blue. Steel blue.
Sure.
But with a orange North Carolina...
I've got that very shirt.
You do?
I do.
Oh, yeah. Is it a Johnny Swank shirt?
It is a Johnny Swank shirt.
I've thoroughly been debating on the Namaste Bitches tank top for the ladies. That
I strongly... I haven't had a chance to say it to him yet, but I really think that Namaste Y'all would be a big seller, too.
Namaste Y'all.
I think that was an idea from what I understand.
For
Bitches is good.
Namaste
But I think Namaste
bitches.
Y'all... There's a lot of women that claim to be 39 years old that wear black pants all day that would love to have a Namaste Y'all shirt.
You go real nice with those yoga pants.
Yeah. As far as somebody that... I'm sorry. Do you have okay. As far as somebody that... sorry, excuse me. No, as far as somebody that I would recommend following on Instagram, there's a guy I've been following named Photo Idol. Fotoidol. He actually just finished his thru hike.
Congrats.
And yeah, let's see. According to this picture of him wearing very little, standing on top of Katahdin sign.
That is a saucy summit picture.
Yeah.
Congrats, sir.
with what look to be like gigantic push pins, but they are trekking poles, but they just look more like maybe something you see on top of a club sandwich. But yeah, so that was posted one day ago. I think his other summit photos from 4 days ago. But he did it in 115 days.
Shit.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah,
way to bust it, dude.
Something I am not familiar with. I can't remember. I worked it out the other day. I can't remember how much it was, but I was like,
I'm pretty sure when I got home, what my boss said to me was, "Well, you sure didn't set any land speed records, but we're glad to have you back." Thank you, boss.
Yeah, thanks. I think.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm not really sure how to
lazy
interpret
asshole.
that, but let's see you do this, bitches.
There's one of my favorite photos he has on here is the title of it, the subtitle he has on here is Yoda isn't dead. He's running a convenience store in Gorham, New Hampshire, and the picture is of a sign that says ice cold beverages we have.
Nice.
But yeah. So hopefully this dude's not offended. It seems to have a public profile anyway. So yeah, fuck him. But no, enjoyed following his thru hike. So I guess to wrap up next week, crazy people.
Crazy people.
Call in with crazy people stories.
Yeah. If any of you 2009ers had any run-ins with Wrath, I loved the guy. I thought that he was fantastic, but I'd love to hear some Wrath stories if anybody had some.
And we by no means are trying to lump Baltimore Jack in with the crazy people.
No, not at all.
That was just a subset of discussion.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, he could go in or out of the crazy people episode.
I'm sure he's met a few.
He's applicable in
all
topics.
Absolutely. Well, I guess that does it for the first Pox and Puss show, or whatever we decide to call it later on, so it doesn't sound like a venereal disease.
It's not a VD, we promise.
And thank you very much, Flow Easy. Hope to have you back.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's been great fun.
No problem. Thank you, sir.
You stay classy, Appalachian Trail.
Oh, and I think I decided my sign off was going to be stay away from the comments section. I hate the comments section.